You know that feeling when you wake up and immediately regret being conscious? Yeah, that was me. Except multiply it by about 1,000 and add some alien medical equipment beeping like a dying synthesizer. The first thing I noticed was the lighting. Whoever designed this medical bay clearly had a personal vendetta against eyeballs. The lights were this sickly purple-green that made me feel like I was inside a lava lamp from hell. My head pounded like a bass drum at a death metal concert, and every single part of my body screamed in protest when I tried to move. The second thing I noticed? I wasn't alone. 7 pairs of enormous, luminescent eyes were staring at me. Unblinking. Just staring that I blinked once. Twice. Nope, still there. Small, furry bodies surrounded my medical cot, some perched on the edges, others huddled on the floor. They looked like a cross between otters and lions, if otters had retractable claws and lions came in colors that would make a rainbow jealous. Mostly they were varying shades of blue and purple with these ridiculous tufted ears that twitched every time I breathed. Great, I croaked, my voice sounding like I'd been gargling gravel. I'm being studied by space hamsters. One of them, a smaller one with bright azure fur, chirped at me and tilted its head so far I was worried it might fall off. I tried to sit up. Bad idea. Terrible idea. My ribs immediately filed a formal complaint with my brain, which was already dealing with about 15 other complaints from various body parts I'd forgotten I had. Okay, I muttered, easing back down. We're doing this the slow way. The furry observers didn't move. They just kept watching me with those huge, unblinking eyes like I was the most fascinating documentary they'd ever seen. Let me back up, because I'm betting you're wondering how Maya Chen, humble cargo hauler and professional mind-my-own-business expert, ended up in an alien medical bay surrounded by what I would later learn were basically baby apex predators. Spoiler alert. It wasn't on purpose that I was running a simple job. Simple. Just transport some medical supplies to the Outer Rim colonies, collect my credits, maybe grab some of that fermented Jovian coffee that tastes like battery acid but keeps you awake for 3 days straight. Easy money. No drama. The universe, apparently, thought I needed more excitement in my life. I picked up a distress beacon about halfway through the route. Now, normally I'd ignore those things because A, I'm not a hero, and B, distress beacons are usually followed by pirates, malfunctions, or pirates disguised as malfunctions. But this one was coming from what looked like an abandoned colony ship, and something about it felt off. Why do I always find trouble? I remember asking my ship's AI, who responded with the digital equivalent of a shrug that I should have listened to my gut and kept flying. But no, Maya Chen had to go investigate like some kind of discount superhero. The colony ship was a mess. Blast marks everywhere, systems failing, life support barely functional. And tucked away in a cargo hold, I found them. 7 terrified alien cubs, huddled together in the dark, making these pitiful little whimpering sounds that made my heart do something extremely inconvenient. They were Vrelnian, though I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was they were scared, they were alone, and their parents were nowhere to be found. And then I heard the pirates, because of course there were pirates. The universe has a sick sense of humor. What followed was possibly the stupidest thing I've ever done, and I once tried to outrun a supernova on a dare. I grabbed those cubs, all 7 of them clinging to me like furry backpacks, and made a run for my ship. The pirates, naturally, didn't appreciate this. They started shooting. I started running faster. The cubs started screaming. It was a whole thing that I got them to my ship, but one of the pirates' shots hit my fuel line. I had maybe 30 seconds before the whole colony ship turned into a firework display. I shoved 6 cubs into my escape pod and went back for the 7th, the little runt who'd gotten separated in the chaos. The explosion caught us just as I was dragging that last cub towards safety. I remember throwing myself over it, feeling the heat, the impact, thinking, well, this is a stupid way to die. Then everything went black, and I apparently decided to take a 3-day nap. Fun times. Back in the present, one of the larger cubs, this one with deep purple fur and a scar across its snout, started making noises at me. Not just chirps this time, but actual attempts at words. Human, wake. Good. Good wake. I stared. Did you just talk? The purple one puffed up with pride. Learn. Learn Galactic Common. For you. Oh sweet stars, they were trying to speak to me. My heart did that inconvenient melting thing again. How long was I out? I asked slowly, enunciating each word. A chorus of chirps erupted. They all started talking at once, and let me tell you, trying to understand 7 excited alien children speaking broken galactic common with heavy chirping accents is about as easy as juggling chainsaws while riding a unicycle. From what I could piece together between the squeaks and trills, I'd been unconscious for 3 days. The medical station had retrieved us from my damaged ship and had been working overtime to patch up my very human body, which apparently doesn't respond well to explosions. Shocking, I know, the Azure one, who seemed to be the youngest, tugged on my blanket. We stay. No leave. Promise. You've been here the whole time? I asked. 7 heads nodded in unison. It would have been adorable if it wasn't also slightly concerning. Just then, the medical bay door hissed open, and in walked what I can only describe as a very irritated ostrich in a lab coat. She had these long, elegant feathers in shades of cream and gold, a sharp beak, and eyes that looked like they'd seen entirely too much of everyone's nonsense. "Oh good, you're awake," she said in a voice that suggested this was actually not good at all. "Perhaps you can convince your small army here to let me run some basic scans?" I tried to separate them for exactly 45 seconds, and they destroyed 2 medical drones and a very expensive scanner. The cubs looked utterly unrepentant. One of them, a green-tinged female with oversized paws, chirped something that I'm pretty sure translated to, "They started it." "Dr. Kelthera, I presume?" I said, because the name tag on her coat was a dead giveaway. "And you're the human who apparently thinks she's a mobile shield," she replied, pulling up a holographic display. "Your medical records are fascinating. By which I mean horrifying." I tried to shrug, which hurt. I'm a predator magnet. What can I say? Dr. Kelthera's feathers ruffled in what might have been amusement or exasperation. Probably both. You have no idea how right you are. Do you know what species these cubs are? Vrelnian? I guessed, because I'd heard one of the rescue workers mention it earlier. Vrelnian apex predators, she corrected, her tone shifting to something more serious. From a planet where everything is trying to kill everything else. They're considered one of the most dangerous species in this sector. Even as children. I looked at the 7 pairs of adoring eyes still fixed on me. The Azure one was now purring and had draped itself across my legs like a particularly clingy house cat. These murder fluffs? I said skeptically. Really? Dr. Kelthera's beak clicked in what might have been a laugh. Yes, Maya Chen. Really? Dr. Kelthera pulled up another hologram, this one showing what looked like an adult Vrelnian. I'll admit, that was considerably more intimidating. Think lion-sized otter with retractable claws, powerful jaws, and apparently a taste for hunting in packs. The kind of creature you see in nature documentaries right before the narrator says, and this is where the prey realizes it made a terrible mistake. Their species has a 98% hunting success rate, Dr. Kelthera continued, clearly enjoying my expression. They're pack hunters with enhanced reflexes, natural armor plating under that pretty fur, and enough bite force to crack titanium alloys. Neat, I said weakly. The Azure cub chose that moment to lick my hand with its tiny sandpaper tongue. And yet, the doctor continued, her tone shifting to something between amazement and scientific fascination, they've bonded to you. A human. Do you know what humans are classified as in the Galactic Registry? Deathworlders, I sighed. I'd heard this speech before. Exactly. From a planet so ridiculously hostile that the fact you evolved to sentience is considered a statistical anomaly. Gravity that would crush most species. Atmosphere with corrosive oxygen. Persistence predator physiology. You people are terrifying. I gestured weakly at my bandaged, broken body. Yeah, sure, I'm terrifying. I'm so scary I can barely lift my arm without whimpering. But Dr. Kelthera wasn't done with her lecture. She pulled up more data, and her voice went softer. The cubs' parents were killed by the pirates. They died defending their young, as Vrelnians do. The whole colony ship was a massacre. Well, that explained the blood stains I'd seen. My stomach churned. These cubs should be feral with grief and rage, she continued. They should be attacking anything that moves. Vrelnian young who lose their parents typically become extremely aggressive, impossible to approach. We've had specialists standing by with tranquilizers since you arrived. I looked down at the purring pile of predators currently using me as a combination pillow and security blanket. The purple one with the scar, who I was mentally nicknaming Boss, chirped protectively and rested its head on my shoulder. They think you're their pack now, Dr. Kelthera said softly. Their family. That's. I trailed off, because I had no idea how to finish that sentence. Unprecedented, the doctor supplied. Impossible, according to every behavioral study we have on Vrelnians. They don't bond outside their species. They certainly don't bond with other predators. And yet here we are, watching 7 apex predator cubs treat a human like their mother. Another medical technician, some kind of slug-like creature with too many eye stalks, oozed past the doorway, took one look at the scene, and immediately backed away making distressed gurgling sounds. Your staff seems thrilled about this, I observed dryly. They're terrified, Dr. Kelthera admitted. Half of them have filed requests for hazard pay. The other half want to write research papers about you. I looked at the 7 cubs again. They'd lost everything. Their parents, their home, probably their entire pack. And somehow, in their traumatized little minds, the crazy human who'd thrown herself into an explosion to save them had become their new safe place. Well, I said, trying to sound casual despite the lump in my throat, the galaxy's about to get a lot weirder, isn't it? You have no idea, Dr. Kelthera muttered, updating something on her datapad. The smallest cub, the Azure one, looked up at me with those huge eyes and whispered, Mama Maya? And that's when I knew I was completely screwed. That I'd been awake for maybe an hour when the medical bay doors hissed open again, this time admitting what I can only describe as a walking bureaucratic nightmare. Ambassador Threll was a Quintar, which meant he looked like someone had taken a squid, gave it delusions of grandeur, and stuffed it into an overly elaborate robe covered in medals I was 90% sure he'd awarded himself. His skin was a mottled gray-green, and he had this way of moving his tentacles that screamed, I'm very important and you should be impressed. I was not impressed. I am here to collect the Vrelnian juveniles, he announced without preamble, not even bothering with basic pleasantries like, hello, or, how are you feeling after nearly dying? The cubs immediately stopped purring. 7 sets of ears flattened against 7 skulls. A low, collective growl started building in the room. Yeah, no, I said flatly, his eye stalk swiveled toward me. I beg your pardon. You heard me. No. No. Not happening. Feel free to consult a dictionary if that's too complex. A tentacle waved dismissively in my direction. You have no authority here, human. These are dangerous predator species juveniles who require proper rehabilitation facilities as mandated by Galactic Council Regulation 742, subsection. Let me stop you right there, I interrupted, which made his skin flush an angry purple. When you say proper rehabilitation facilities, you mean cages, right? Let's call it what it is. They are specialized containment and socialization centers designed for cages, I repeated. Fancy, expensive cages where you lock up traumatized children because they're the wrong species. The growling got louder. Boss, the purple cub with the scar, bared tiny but very sharp teeth at the ambassador. Threll's tentacles writhed in agitation. These creatures are classified as extreme threat level organisms. Protocol demands they be removed from civilian populations and placed under proper supervision until they reach maturity, at which point they will be relocated to designated predator zones. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said, my voice dripping with enough sarcasm to corrode steel. "Let me translate that from bureaucrat to actual language. You want to lock them up for the next 15 years and then dump them on some isolated planet because you're scared of them. It is standard procedure." "Standard procedure is garbage," I snapped, and tried to sit up more. "Big mistake." My ribs protested violently, but I was too annoyed to care. These kids just watched their parents die. They're terrified. They're grieving. And your brilliant solution is to throw them in a cage? The cubs had now formed a protective semicircle around my bed, all 7 of them growling at the ambassador like the world's most adorable threat display. "This is exactly why they require professional handling," Threll said, backing up slightly. "They're clearly exhibiting aggressive tendencies." "They're exhibiting common sense," I shot back. "Something you could learn from them." Dr. Kelthera, who had been observing this whole exchange from the corner, made a sound that might have been a cough but was definitely a suppressed laugh. Her beak was slightly open in what I was pretty sure was the avian equivalent of a grin. Threll's eye stalks focused on her. "Doctor, surely you can explain to this human the regulations regarding dangerous species juveniles." "Oh, I've explained plenty," Dr. Kelthera said innocently. "She's surprisingly well informed now." "Then you will prepare the juveniles for transport immediately," Threll demanded. The smallest cub, my little azure shadow, let out a hiss that would have done a cobra proud and latched onto my arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but definitely hard enough to make a point. "Over my dead body," I said quietly. "That can be arranged," Threll replied, and I'm pretty sure he meant it as a joke, but several of the cubs took it as a threat and started advancing on him with their little claws extended. Dr. Kelthera stepped forward smoothly. "Ambassador, perhaps we should discuss this outside while Maya recovers. She did nearly die saving these cubs, after all." It wasn't a suggestion. Threll seemed to realize he was outnumbered, or at least outclawed, and retreated toward the door with as much dignity as an angry squid could muster. "This isn't over," he announced pompously. "Looking forward to round 2, I called after him. "Bring better arguments next time." Dr. Kelthera returned about 10 minutes later, alone, looking like she'd just survived a natural disaster. Which, given that she'd been in a room with Ambassador Threll, was probably accurate. "He's filing paperwork," she said, settling into a chair near my bed. "Lots of paperwork. He's very fond of paperwork." "Fantastic," I muttered. "So what happens now?" "Well, that depends. Do you have a plan, or were you just planning to insult bureaucrats until something worked out?" I hadn't really thought that far ahead, if I'm being honest. But looking at those 7 pairs of hopeful eyes watching me, something clicked in my brain. Probably a neuron misfiring from the concussion, but still. "I'll take them," I said. Dr. Kelthera's head tilted so far I heard her neck feathers rustle. "Excuse me?" "The cubs. I'll take custody of them. Legal guardianship, adoption, fostering, whatever the proper term is. I'll do it." She stared at me for a long moment. "You're serious? As a supernova? You realize what you're proposing? A human raising 7 apex predators?" "Yeah," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "What's the worst that could happen?" Dr. Kelthera opened her beak, closed it, then opened it again. "I can think of at least 47 things off the top of my head, and I'm not even trying." But before she could elaborate, the cubs erupted in excited chirps and trills. They practically vibrated with joy, making sounds that I'm pretty sure translated to various versions of "yes, yes, yes." The little azure one started doing what could only be described as a happy dance, which involved a lot of wiggling and an alarming amount of spinning. Boss climbed up onto my bed, looked me directly in the eyes, and said with impressive clarity, "You. Our. Mama." My heart melted into a puddle. Yeah, buddy. I guess I am. The green-tinged female with the oversized paws added, "We good cubs. Promise." "Very good." "The best cubs," I agreed, scratching behind her tufted ears. Meanwhile, my internal monologue was screaming. What was I doing? I could barely keep a succulent plant alive. I once killed a cactus through sheer negligence. And now I was volunteering to raise 7 alien predator children who could apparently bite through titanium when they grew up, but externally? Oh, externally I was the picture of confidence. "I've got this completely under control," I announced to Dr. Kelthra with my best "I know what I'm doing" smile. She looked at me like I'd just declared my intention to juggle plasma grenades. "You're insane." "Probably," I admitted. "But I already saved them once. Might as well commit to the bit. Ambassador Threll is going to lose what passes for his mind." "Good," I said cheerfully. "I look forward to it. Besides, what's he going to do? I'm a Deathworlder raising apex predators. That's like, double terrifying, right? We'll be the most feared family unit in the sector." One of the cubs, a stocky male with silver-blue fur, chirped proudly, "Feared family." Dr. Kelthra rubbed her face with one wing. "I'm going to need so much documentation for this. So much. Do you even have a residence suitable for Vrelnian young? They need specific environmental conditions, dietary requirements, socialization protocols." "I'll figure it out," I said with way more confidence than any person in my situation should have. "How hard can it be?" The doctor's expression suggested it could be very, very hard indeed. Ambassador Threll returned one more time, his tentacles quivering with barely contained rage and what I suspected was a truly impressive stack of digital forms. "This is highly irregular," he sputtered, waving a datapad in my general direction. "A human. Raising Vrelnian apex predators. This violates at least 17 different protocols." "Sounds like you need to update your protocols," I said pleasantly. "Mark my words, human, this isn't over. The Council will be monitoring this situation very closely. One incident, one single safety violation, and those juveniles will be removed from your custody so fast." Yeah, I interrupted. "You'll be watching." "I got it. Feel free to send a fruit basket." He left in what could only be described as a huff, his robes billowing dramatically as the door hissed shut behind him, and then it was just me, Dr. Kelthra, and 7 purring alien predator cubs who had apparently decided I was their new mother. "So," I said, looking around at my new family. "This is my life now." The cubs responded by piling onto my bed in a coordinated cuddle attack that was both adorable and slightly painful given my injuries. Someone's tail was in my face. Someone else's paw was digging into my kidney. The Azure one had claimed my shoulder as a personal pillow. It was chaos. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely not what I'd planned when I woke up this morning 3 days ago. Dr. Kelthra pulled up a chair, her expression softening. "You're going to need help. A lot of help. Vrelnian young are energetic. I've noticed," I said dryly as one of the cubs started gnawing on my blanket. "I'm serious, Maya. They'll need a specialized diet. Training. Socialization. They'll start teething in a few months, and those teeth can pierce hull plating. They'll go through a territorial phase where they'll try to claim everything in a 5-kilometer radius. And don't even get me started on the adolescent years." "You're really selling this," I muttered, but she smiled, a genuine warmth in her avian features. "I'll help. Someone needs to make sure you all survive this. Besides, this is the most interesting case I've had in 20 years. Glad I could provide entertainment." "You've provided much more than that," she said quietly. "You've given these cubs a chance. A real one. Not many would do what you're doing." I looked down at the 7 faces watching me with absolute trust and adoration. Boss with his scarred snout. The Azure baby who could barely pronounce words but tried so hard. The green female with the oversized paws she'd eventually grow into. All of them, choosing to trust the weird human who'd thrown herself into an explosion for them. Well, I said, my voice only slightly wobbly, someone's gotta do it. Might as well be the crazy cargo hauler with a hero complex. Dr. Kelthera stood, preparing to leave. Get some rest. You're going to need it. I'll start preparing the discharge paperwork and setting up a custody hearing. Oh, and Maya? Yeah. Welcome to motherhood. It's going to be terrifying. Story of my life, I said. As the door closed behind her, I leaned back against the pillow, surrounded by purring, chirping, occasionally nibbling apex predators who had somehow become my responsibility. Maya Chen. Former cargo hauler. Current interstellar mom to 7 alien children who would eventually grow up to be able to bite through titanium. How hard can raising 7 apex predators be? I asked the universe. The smallest cub chose that moment to sneeze, accidentally extending her claws and shredding my already tattered blanket. Right, I sighed. Famous last words. But as I drifted off to sleep, surrounded by my ridiculous new family, I couldn't help but smile. Sure, I'd probably just signed up for the most chaotic chapter of my life. Sure, I had no idea what I was doing. Sure, Ambassador Threll was probably already planning 17 different ways to make my life miserable, but I'd faced down pirates, survived an explosion, and woken up to 7 pairs of eyes that looked at me like I hung the stars. If I could do all that, I could probably handle a few cubs. Probably, the universe, I suspected, was laughing at me. Bring it on.